Hello, welcome to Earth's layers. So we finished up energy transformations, we finished up heat transfers, y'all did fantastic. And now we're going to talk about Earth, which is one of my favorite units ever. I'm excited. I hope you like it as much as I do. So before we can get in here and talk about Earth's layers, we need to learn some vocabulary included in this unit because there's going to be some crazy words that you've never heard before, but they're really fun to say. So the first one we're going to talk about is Earth's layers. This one isn't the fun one to say, but it's still really cool. So Earth's layers are divisions inside the Earth known by their chemical composition or state of matter. Are they solids, liquids, gases? Now we've learned about density, and density has a lot to do with why these different layers are in different places inside the Earth. Okay, we're going to talk more about that later. The first layer of the Earth is the one that we live on, and that's called the crust. So the crust is the thin outermost layer of Earth. It's made of less dense silicates, continental, which is where the land is, and oceanic, which is where the ocean is. So all of those are crust, even though it's under the water for oceanic crust. It's the one we walk around on, so hopefully that'll be easy for you to remember. Next, we've got the mantle, which is a semi-solid layer between the outer core and the crust, and it's made of really dense silicates. So we had to learn about the crust and we had to learn about the mantle before we could talk about the lithosphere. So the lithosphere is kind of a two-in-one deal. So you get you get the crust and a piece of the upper mantle all together, and that is broken up into different parts called plates. And we're going to learn more about plates later on in this unit. So whenever you think of lithosphere, think of a two-in-one deal like a combo meal at McDonald's, okay? It's got two different things in it. You've got the crust and the upper mantle, okay? Just under the lithosphere, we've got an asthenosphere. These are the two fun ones that I think are to say. So the asthenosphere is just below the lithosphere. It's in the upper mantle still, and it has plasticity. So those plates that make up the lithosphere can float. So the plates in the lithosphere are floating on top of the asthenosphere. Don't worry, they're big scary words. We're going to learn so much about it, you're going to think, I got this, no big deal. Next, inside the Earth, below the mantle, we have the outer core, and the outer core surrounds the inner core, and it's made of a liquid, nickel and iron. And it's important to know, to remember, that the outer core is made of liquid, okay? Because the inner core is made up of the same stuff, only it's a solid. So the outer core is a liquid, the inner core is the very center of Earth, right there in the middle. It's made of solid nickel and iron, not a liquid, and it's surrounded by the outer core. That's the most dense area in the whole Earth, like the whole thing that we live on. The most dense part is the inner core. Solid nickel and iron. There's so much pressure happening in there. It's crazy. I'm super excited whenever we get into this and we start learning more about Earth's layers because I hope you love it, like I said, just as much as I do. So there's some other words that we need to talk about, okay? And this one you heard whenever we talked about one of the words up north, before. It's called silicates, and what silicates are rocks and minerals that contain silicon and oxygen. Silicon and oxygen are two of those elements that we had on the periodic table of elements. Here's a couple of them. They make up silicates, and silicates make up a couple of those layers that we were talking about. The next word we're going to talk about is plasticity. So we talked about plasticity when we talked about the asthenosphere, okay? And what that is a solid that can flow without being a liquid. It sounds crazy, right? We're going to talk more about it. It's okay. But the layer of Earth that has plasticity is the asthenosphere. So here we've got chemical composition, and all that means is that the elements that make up the substance. So the word before we said silicates, okay, that makes up some of our layers, And we said that those have silicon and oxygen. So that would be the chemical composition for silicates. Does that kind of make sense? All it is the elements that make up a substance. So pressure is going to be an important thing to know about whenever we're talking about the layers of the earth, because the further you go inside the earth, the more pressure is being pushed on those layers. So the mantles put a whole bunch of pressure on the inner core, and all the layers on top of the inner core are really like squishing, and that's why the inner core is solid, but that's because of pressure. And pressure is force exerted on matter by contact. It affects the melting and boiling points, and that's going to be important again whenever we talk about the inner and the outer core, okay? Keep it in mind. Here we have a couple review words that are going to be really important for our Earth's layers and plates unit. So the first one is physical properties. Physical properties is just the mass, magnetism, temperature, density, shape, volume, conductivity, things along those lines, okay? We already know what that is. We talked about that a while back, but like I said, it's going to be important. Next, we've got density, and density is important because the density of the layers of Earth are why they are where they are, okay? And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna talk about that more, but density is the amount of matter in a given amount of space. The less dense matter will form above more dense matter. So the further those particles are spread apart, the less dense something is going to be, and it's going to rise up if it's less dense, right? The closer particles are together, the more dense they're going to be, and they're going to be down and like, whew, they're going to sink down, okay? Keep it in mind because that's why the layers of the earth are where they are, okay? Next, we've got temperature, which is the amount of heat in an object. We just talked about heat transfer, so we should all remember that, right? Next, we've got states of matter. We've got solid, liquid, gas. States of matter, okay? Super important because some of our layers of earth, it's hard to believe, but many of them are liquid. Kind of cool, right? Okay, y'all are amazing. I hope you're looking as forward to this unit as I am. It's going to be awesome. I love the earth.